All right, guys. So, in the aftermath of this White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting fiasco, the press, the mainstream media, has given a couple of interviews that I found really, really, really disappointing. And I don't feel like it's any secret. I mean, like, the mainstream media has always been kind of disappointing, but, like, it baffles me that these people get paid millions and millions of dollars a year to do this. So I'm going to start with a couple of really bad examples of how the mainstream media conducts these interviews. And then I actually have one that I really like. This was a question that was posed to Pete Hegseth, so I'm going to save the best for last. But let's start here with the 60 Minutes one that Trump did with Norah O'Donnell. And I actually covered this one in the last video, but I'm just going to kind of react as we go along. Here, take a look.
The so-called manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, "Administration officials, they are targets." And he also wrote this: "I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes." What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that.
Okay, right off the bat, I love the little glance to the camera when she says that, and he's just like, ah, crap. But it's a question Trump doesn't like. It makes him uncomfortable. So what does he do? The first thing he does is attack the interviewer for asking a question. You're horrible people, horrible, horrible people. This is pertinent to the story, right? This is about the shooter's motive. Why is she horrible for reading what the guy wrote? And not even the shooter, because I guess, you know, reports come out now that like the shots that you hear in the in the footage of when this happened, apparently that was all the Secret Service. Like this guy wasn't even on the same floor. But anyway, let's continue.
I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap?
That actually is a good follow-up. The fact that he gets so defensive and then he immediately goes, "I'm not a rapist, I'm not a pedophile," and she goes, "Oh, you think he's referring to you?" Yeah, because you're mentioned in the Epstein files over 1 million times.
I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, you know, I'll do this interview.
Okay, this claim is wild because he goes, I'm totally exonerated. This is the thing that just drives me absolutely nuts. Trump just asserts, I was totally exonerated. It's your friends on the other side of the plate, the Democrats, they're the ones that are guilty. I'm totally exonerated. No, you're not, because you're in the Epstein files over 1 million times and you've never been brought before Congress. Meanwhile, the Oversight Committee dragged Bill and Hillary Clinton in for questioning, but Trump's never been asked about this. And so the fact that he just asserts that I've been totally exonerated, like, no, you have not. No, you have not.
They'll probably, I read the manifesto, you know, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and
these
I was
are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
Okay, so again, he goes, you shouldn't be reading that. You're a total disgrace. You really shouldn't be reading that on 60. That's a total disgrace. No, it's not. And here's what I would say if I were Norah O'Donnell. I'd be like, Mr. President, sir, I'm just doing my job. My job is to ask these questions because it's pertinent to the story. And I'd really appreciate it if you kept it civil and professional instead of attacking me for reading something that the guy who was allegedly trying to kill you wrote as part of his motive for doing that. That has nothing to do with me being horrible. That's just me stating what was said. And I just want to get your reaction to it. So maybe you could stop trying to attack me personally and just answer the question. That's what somebody who was a serious like interviewer would say. Like, the fact that they just allow Trump to steamroll them all the time, and he gets away with it because this is his playbook. Like, he just goes out on the offense And I get that there's just like this insane level of misogyny and disrespect, especially for female reporters, but for the press in general, because Trump has such disdain for the press. But you get paid millions of dollars a year, Norah O'Donnell. Like, you get paid so much money. Like, you get paid. Why don't you stand up for yourself on camera? This was embarrassing. The other thing, too, that I want to mention before we go on to the next one is that this interview apparently was over 40 minutes long, and what actually got released was cut down to like less than 15 minutes. So I want to remind people, Trump tried to sue, I believe it was ABC, for doing an edited interview with Kamala Harris, and this is heavily, heavily edited. There's so much of this is just like Trump rambling and going off on tangents that make absolutely no sense. And the parts that they leave in, he still looks bad. He still looks ridiculous. And again, if I were her, and I know that like being in the seat at the moment on camera, it's totally different, but like, you've got to grow some fucking balls. Like, you're just allowing him to steamroll you, and he just like asserts, I was totally exonerated. I would butt in, be like, I'm sorry, Mr. President. Actually, you haven't been exonerated because you're in the files more than Jesus is mentioned in the Bible, and I don't think that exonerates you in any way. Who told you that you were exonerated? How do you feel that you were exonerated? Like, that would be an important follow-up to this, maybe, or a good way to just kind of get him to stop. I mean, like, his playbook would be, I'm just going to continue on the attack and call you horrible. But that would be one way to combat this. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. This was Dana Bash on CNN, and she's going to ask Jamie Raskin about, political violence and, how rhetoric drives political violence. And this is just really, really, really annoying to me. All right, here, take a look.
And you have, as many of your fellow Democrats, have used some heated rhetoric against the president. And do you think twice about that when something like this happens?
What rhetoric do you have in mind?
Just talking about some of the fact that he, is terrible for this country and so on and so forth. I understand that that's your Democratic right, but overall, do you
I
have a
no
responsibility?
personal problem with Donald Trump at all. I mean, I talk about the policies of this administration, the authoritarianism like we saw on display in Minneapolis, where 2 of our citizens were gunned down in the streets simply for exercising their First Amendment rights. Renee Good, Alex Preddy, and others have died in custody. I'm talking about policies.
Okay, yeah, this just to me is so annoying. Again, Dana Bash has done some good work. Like, there was one that she did where she just like pulled down JD Vance's pants on air back when he was making up lies about Haitians eating people's pets before the election. But the idea that, like, don't you think that, that you're responsible for some of the political violence because you've done some pretty heated rhetoric? And Jamie Raskin rightly says, like, what? Like, what do you mean? Right? It isn't like heated rhetoric to just call a spade, and which he does. He's just like, yeah, I call out his authoritarianism because he does authoritarian stuff like invade American cities and detain people without warrants and without due process, and they've literally killed American citizens, ICE has, but that doesn't make that heated rhetoric. That's just stating facts, okay? And if you don't want people to call you an authoritarian, if you don't want people to call you a fascist, maybe don't do overtly authoritarian fascist things. And this is the thing that I really can't stand about Dana Bash. Again, makes millions of dollars a year to do both sides nonsense. I mean, this is a proven fact, okay, that the majority of political violence is committed by right-wing extremists. And I can put up the chart right here. It isn't even close. The majority of political violence is carried out by right-wing extremists. And also, we live in the age of Donald Trump. Okay, Are we really going to attack Democrats or try and, like hold Democrats accountable for politically charged speech that's inflammatory? I mean, come on. Trump calls Democrats the enemy of the people and the press. I mean, Dana Bash is part of the press. He calls them the enemy of the people. He calls them scum. He calls them the enemy from within. With complete disregard for definitions of words, he calls Democrats communists, Marxists, socialists, fascists. I mean, don't you think that like the Democrats are sort of responsible for some of the violence? No, absolutely not. No. Like I said, this is what you get from the mainstream media. Like Norah O'Donnell gets steamrolled. Dana Bash, asking questions about like to Jamie Raskin of all people. Don't you think the Democrats are sort of responsible for some of the like politically charged language? No. I mean, this is ridiculous. In the age of Donald Trump, that's the question you're going to ask. But finally, I do want to end with this one because this was one that I actually really enjoyed. And this was TMZ actually asked this question of the Secretary of War Crimes, Pete Hegseth. And this is beautiful. This is brilliant. Here, take a look.
Right here, new members of our press corps here.
Jacob Wasserman with TMZ DC. We have two questions. I'm going to ask the first. My colleague will ask the second. I've heard you talk a lot about bombing.
We'll see.
Sorry?
We'll see.
Okay. I've heard you talk a lot about bombing people and places. And when you give these orders to carry out this extreme level of violence, what's going through your mind and your body? Do you have like an adrenaline rush? Are you scared? Do you feel like you're on a power trip? Just walk us through and paint us a picture of what it feels like mentally and physically.
It's a very TMZ question. My only thought process is to ensure that our warfighters have everything they need to be successful, defeat and destroy the enemy, and they come home.
I love that question. Do you get off on doing bombing? Answer is yes, because Pete Hegseth is a disgusting war criminal who bragged about, like bombing fishermen in the Caribbean. And so, yes, he does like this kind of stuff. I mean, there was that whole story about how like they double tapped one of the boats that they bombed in the Caribbean. And there were people that, that were in the military at that time that were like horrified by it. I mean, like the admiral who was in charge of that, like resigned as a result of this. So the answer is yes. Pete Hegseth does feel like a big, strong boy when he does bombing, when he orders strikes, especially on innocent people. We triple tapped a girls' elementary school in Iran. And so I think this is funny. And again, it's like his reaction, that's a very TMZ question. No, that's a question that somebody in the press should ask, because it's like, you do illegal things all of the time. Does it make you feel good? And his answer is, well, we want our warfighters to feel empowered, which means we want our soldiers, our warfighters, to be able to get away with war crimes and not feel guilty about it. I wish that the press was more aggressive like this, because like, not only is it a good question, it's aggressive, it's clever, it's kind of funny, and it puts these jerks like Pete Hegseth on the back foot, because you can tell he's not used to being asked a question like that. But it is absolutely true that, everybody knows on some level that like Pete Hegseth just gets off on doing war crimes. It's why he's always horny for war. He was like bragging about how he was still in support of the war in Iraq at the time when it was the most unpopular. And this is after, we had done like all kinds of war crimes and torture and all of this stuff, found out that there's actually no weapons of mass destruction, all of this stuff. And Pete Hegseth was still bragging about how he supported the war. He fought in that war, right? Like, you should know better that you did horrible, unspeakable things based on lies. And so the only conclusion is that, yes, he does enjoy that. It does make him feel powerful. But I wish that the press did more of those kind of questions like TMZ just did. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts were below. Did you like the question by TMZ? Do you think that Dana Bash is actually doing a good job by asking Jamie Raskin about, like his thoughts on the Democrats' contribution to political violence? Anyway, like the video, sub to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and click the bell so that YouTube will notify you, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.